The arena was enormous, stretching as far as the eye could see, filled with thousands of beings from worlds Elias had never imagined. The ground was dry, cracked, and hot beneath his boots. He could hear the chatter, the jeers, and the low growl of excitement from the crowd. Their eyes glittered like shards of metal under the harsh twin suns. It was a place meant to break spirits, a place designed for fear. Chains rattled behind him as the guards pushed him forward. Elias's hands were bound with glowing cords that bit into his skin when he moved. He took a deep breath, feeling the sting of heat and metal, and tried to ignore the shouts from the crowd. They wanted him to scream. They wanted him to fall. They wanted him to show fear like a badge of honor. But Elias did not. In the center of the arena, a massive block rose from the ground. It was polished and cold-looking, a perfect stage for what was coming next. At the top stood Joran, the Zell commander. He was tall, thin, and cruel, with sharp features that seemed to cut the air around him. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, dark and impossible to read. Beside him lay his pet, the Vorax. The creature was terrifying beyond words. It was the size of a house, all jagged teeth and black scales that shimmered in the sun. Its eyes glowed like molten metal, and smoke drifted from its nostrils. Its claws were longer than swords, and its growl vibrated through the ground like the pulse of a drum. It had been fed nothing but the largest and strongest beasts from dozens of worlds, and yet it seemed hungrier than ever. Elias did not flinch. His chest rose and fell steadily, and though his clothes were torn and his face scraped from the rough journey here, there was calm in his eyes, calm that unnerved even the guards. They had seen many creatures face the Vorax, and all of them had screamed. All of them had begged. But Elias, he just walked forward, slow, deliberate steps that echoed through the arena. The crowd roared, eager for the performance. Joran's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Why aren't you scared, human?" he barked, his voice cutting through the noise. "One word from me and my pet will devour you." The Vorax lifted its massive head and fixed its glowing eyes on Elias. Its teeth clicked together with a sound like stone grinding on stone. Steam curled from its mouth, and the air around it felt heavier. The beast was the weapon of fear itself, and Joran knew it. He had trained it to obey every gesture, every word, and now the arena waited for Elias to crumble. Elias stopped a few feet from the block. He looked at the Vorax, then at Joran. The calm in his eyes did not waver. His lips pressed into a thin line, and his gaze was steady, unbroken. Joran tilted his head. That gaze was wrong. It was not the trembling, pleading fear he expected. It was defiance, quiet and unshakable. "You will beg," Joran shouted, stepping closer. The crowd leaned forward in anticipation. The soldiers tightened their grip on the chains, their hands trembling slightly. Even they had not seen a human face the Vorax without fear. "Cry out for mercy." Elias smiled faintly, a small, almost sad curve of his lips. "Why would I cry?" he asked, his voice soft, almost gentle. It carried over the roar of the crowd, slicing through it like a calm wind. The arena fell silent for a moment. The soldiers blinked. The crowd hesitated. Joran's anger flared, sharp and hot. He could not allow this insolence. "Do you not understand what stands before you?" he hissed. "This beast has devoured creatures stronger than you. One word from me and it will tear you apart limb by limb." Elias took another step forward. He did not lower his gaze. He did not back down. His chest rose with calm determination. "I see it," he said. "I see you, your power, and your beast. I'm not blind, but I'm not afraid either." The Vorax growled low, the sound vibrating through Elias's bones. Its claws scraped the stone beneath it. Joran stepped closer to the human, anger twisting his features. "Answer me, human. Show some respect for your life. Fear me." Elias did not move. He did not flinch. "Respect is not the same as fear," he said quietly. "And life. Life is not given to be wasted on trembling before monsters." The crowd gasped. Some laughed nervously. Others leaned in, unsure if they had heard correctly. Elias's words were simple, plain, but there was a weight to them. They were not boastful, not arrogant. They were honest. They carried a quiet strength that no roar, no weapon, no beast could overpower. Joran's hands tightened into fists. "You dare speak to me like this?" he shouted, his voice a whip cracking across the arena. The Vorax shifted, muscles rippling under its scales. It snarled, smoke rising higher from its nostrils. Yet it did not move to attack. Elias took a deep breath. The sun warmed his face, and he felt the dust in the arena beneath his boots. He remembered stories from home, stories his sister had told him. Stories of bravery, of standing tall when everything wants you to fall. He thought of his family, of small acts of courage that had once seemed insignificant. Now they mattered more than ever. "I do not fear you," he said, his voice ringing clear, "because fear is a choice, and I choose not to give it to you." The arena erupted with noise. Some screamed in shock. Some shouted in disbelief. Joran's face turned red, veins pulsing with anger. The Vorax's growl rose to a deafening roar. Its eyes burned brighter, but Elias did not move. He stood his ground, calm and steady. Joran took a step forward, the weight of his authority pressing down like a hammer. "This insolent human will regret these words." He shouted, "Vorax! Destroy him!" The chain rattled as the Vorax lunged, its massive form shaking the ground. Dust flew into the air and the crowd roared with excitement. Elias braced himself, expecting the worst. But as the beast neared, he did something unexpected. He raised his hands slowly as if greeting an old friend. He did not scream. He did not flinch. The Vorax stopped mid-stride. Its eyes, molten and fierce, focused on Elias's hands. A strange stillness filled the arena. The crowd gasped. The soldiers froze. Even Joran hesitated, his command lost in the unexpected calm. Elias whispered something. The words were soft, almost like a song. The Vorax tilted its head, listening. Its growl faded into a low, confused rumble. Elias stepped closer, slow and careful, and spoke again, more firmly. The chain hung slack. The beast, the weapon of fear itself, did not move to strike. Joran's rage burned hotter than ever, but Elias's calm was a shield the fire could not reach. The human faced the monster unafraid, and something in the Vorax seemed to respond. Something old, hidden beneath teeth and muscle, something that remembered softness. For the first time in the arena's history, fear did not rule. The arena trembled with tension. Joran's fingers clenched at his sides as he stared at Elias. His words, his calm, his refusal to fear. The human's defiance cut sharper than any blade he had ever wielded. The crowd murmured, unsure if they had misheard. This was not the show they had come for. They wanted terror, they wanted screams, and all they were getting was silence. Joran stepped closer to the human, forcing his presence like a storm against calm water. "Do you not understand the power you face?" he shouted. His voice rolled across the arena and the crowd leaned in, waiting for the human to break. "This beast has devoured giants. It has torn through soldiers. One word from me and it will rip you apart." The Vorax shifted beside him, smoke curling from its nostrils. Its eyes, red-hot and filled with hunger, were fixed on Elias. Muscles rippled under its black scales. The chain rattled as it strained, eager to obey its master. It had never refused a command. It had never hesitated, and yet it paused. Elias's lips curved in a faint, tired smile. He looked up at Joran, and there was no fear in his eyes, only clarity. "You speak of power," he said softly, "but power is not the same as courage, and courage is not the same as cruelty." The arena fell into a strange silence. Some onlookers shifted nervously. Others whispered in disbelief. A soldier near the edge of the arena muttered under his breath, "What is this human doing?" Joran's rage flared. His face twisted, veins standing out like cords of iron. He had never been challenged like this. Not by a human, not by anyone. "Do you dare lecture me?" he bellowed. "Do you dare mock the one who controls life and death in this arena?" Elias met his gaze steadily. "I do not mock," he said. "I speak what is true. Fear can be given, but it can also be refused. Life can be taken, but it can also be preserved. Your power is only as strong as those who bow to it." The Vorax growled, a low, guttural rumble that shook the sand beneath their feet. Its head dipped closer to Elias, and steam rose from its nostrils like the breath of a mountain. Yet it did not move to attack. The human's words seemed to hold it like an invisible tether, pulling the beast back from the edge of fury. Joran's hands trembled slightly. He had expected obedience, terror, and blind submission. Instead, he found hesitation. He barked again, louder this time. "Vorax, kill him! Tear him apart!" The creature's muscles tensed. Its eyes glowed brighter, but its jaws did not snap. Its claws dug slightly into the ground as if it were listening, not attacking. A strange noise emerged from its throat. A sound that was not quite a growl, not quite a whine. It was a sound that made the hairs on the back of the soldier's neck stand up. Elias took a slow, deep breath. His hands, still bound, flexed slightly. He raised them as if to calm the beast rather than to defend himself. "It is not your hunger I see," he whispered. "It is your memory. You remember being small. You remember being afraid, and now you can choose something else." The words were soft, almost like a lullaby. The Vorax tilted its massive head, smoke curling from its mouth. Its eyes, burning and dangerous, softened for just a moment. The chain rattled, but the beast did not move closer. Instead, it lowered its massive body slightly, like a giant learning to kneel. Joran's face paled. He had never witnessed such defiance. He had never seen the beast pause, never seen it hesitate. The soldiers looked at each other, fear creeping into their expressions. The crowd, sensing a shift in power, began to murmur, unsure what to cheer for. Elias spoke again, his voice steady, carrying across the arena. "Power is not measured in fear. It is measured in the choices you make. You can choose cruelty, or you can choose mercy. You can choose anger, or you can choose calm. The choice is always yours." The Vorax moved closer to Elias, not with violence but with curiosity. Its claws dug shallow grooves into the sand as it stepped forward. Smoke poured from its nostrils, but its eyes were fixed on the human, as if seeking something it had long forgotten. Joran's anger boiled over. "I am the master here. I command this creature. You will obey or you will die," he shouted. But even as he spoke, he noticed something that made his heart tighten. The beast did not obey. Its massive head lowered further, almost touching Elias's bound hands. The chain slackened. Elias reached out a hand slowly, carefully, and rested it on the Vorax's massive snout. The beast sniffed him, its hot breath washing over his face. The crowd gasped in disbelief. The soldiers froze, unsure if they should intervene. Joran's voice cracked as he tried to regain control. "Remove him! Take him away!" But the Vorax did not move. It stayed close to Elias, its growl fading into a low, almost contemplative rumble. Its eyes, once molten and terrifying, now seemed almost human in their understanding. Elias's voice grew firmer. "You do not have to be cruel. You can remember kindness. You can remember what it is to be small and helpless and still choose to be more than that." The crowd was silent now. No one had ever seen this before. They had come for death and terror, and instead they were witnessing something extraordinary. The human had faced the Vorax unafraid, and the beast had listened. Joran's rage turned to confusion. He had built his life on fear. He had relied on obedience and terror to control everything. And now, a single human, small and fragile by comparison, had done what he could not. He had tamed the untamable, not with chains or force, but with words. Elias did not speak to the crowd. He spoke to the Vorax and through it to something larger than himself. "You are not just a weapon," he said softly. "You are more than what they made you. You can choose." The beast pressed its massive head closer to Elias's hands. Its hot breath rolled over him, but it did not strike. Its claws dug into the sand, but it did not lunge. The chain rattled loosely, as if even the metal could not force obedience against this calm courage. For the first time, Joran realized something terrifying. Power could be challenged, fear could be denied, and in the heart of the arena, where death and terror had always ruled, a human had shown that courage, compassion, and clarity could stand stronger than the sharpest teeth. Elias stood, hands resting gently on the Vorax, and looked at Joran. "Do you see now?" he asked. "Strength is not measured by fear. It is measured by what you choose to protect, not what you choose to destroy." Joran's fists loosened. His voice wavered. The soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. Even the crowd, once eager for carnage, could not cheer. They were witnesses to something new, something that left them unsure, shaken, and strangely inspired. And in that moment, Elias realized something important. He had not come to the arena to fight. He had come to survive, yes, but also to show that fear could be refused, that courage could bloom even in the face of monsters, and that one voice, one choice could change everything. The Vorax stayed by his side, massive and terrifying, yet calm, and for the first time in the arena's long history, a human had turned the tide of fear into something else entirely, something far more powerful. The arena held its breath. Even the crowd, once roaring for blood, now whispered in uneasy wonder. A human, small, fragile, and alone, stood beside the Vorax, the greatest predator they had ever seen, and the beast had not attacked. It did not growl. It did not strike. It simply listened. Joran stepped back, his anger simmering but not yet cooled. He had faced countless defiant creatures, countless trembling humans, but never one who stood calm in the shadow of a beast like this. His mind raced. Every instinct screamed that fear should rule, that the human would break, that the Vorax would obey its master. And yet none of it was happening. Elias's hands remained steady on the Vorax's snout. He could feel its hot breath on his skin. He could feel the weight of its massive head, heavy and powerful, yet strangely gentle as it pressed down. In that moment, he understood something. The beast had known kindness once, a memory buried beneath years of fear and hunger. And now it remembered. The crowd's silence was broken only by the soft, low rumble of the Vorax. Its eyes, once blazing, now held something else. Curiosity, understanding, maybe even recognition. Elias whispered softly, almost to himself, "You don't have to be what they made you. You can choose something better." A ripple ran through the soldiers surrounding the arena. Their hands hovered over weapons, unsure if they should intervene. They had never seen the Vorax hesitate. They had never seen the human touch it without being shredded. Joran's control, the power he had relied on for years, was slipping through his fingers like water. The Zell commander's voice rose, sharp and commanding, but with an edge of desperation. "Vorax, attack!" The beast stopped mid-step. Its head lifted, eyes locked on Elias. Its jaw opened slightly, a low growl trembling from deep in its chest, but it did not move forward. The chain rattled loosely in its massive paws, but it remained where it was, calm and listening. Elias looked at the Vorax with soft eyes. He spoke again, quietly, deliberately. "You can be more than fear. You can be free, even here. You can remember kindness, not only hunger." Something shifted. The creature's massive shoulders sagged slightly as if relief had replaced tension. It lowered its head further, resting it lightly against Elias's chest. Smoke curled lazily from its nostrils, and its growl softened to almost a purr. The crowd gasped collectively. Soldiers froze, unsure whether to obey Joran or step back. Joran's rage flared, sharp and hot. He could not allow this. This human had no right to defy him, to tame his pet with mere words. He stepped closer, voice booming. "You dare teach my beast obedience? You dare challenge me in front of everyone?" Elias turned to Joran slowly. "I do not challenge you," he said. "I challenge fear. And fear once faced loses its power." The arena was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Every eye was on the human and the beast. Even those who had come expecting terror now felt something else. Awe. The Vorax, a symbol of ultimate power, had been touched by something as simple as courage and calm. Joran's face was red, veins throbbing. He clenched his fists, trying to summon the authority that had always made the world bend. He barked orders, waved his arms, shouted insults. But the Vorax did not budge. It did not obey. It remained beside Elias, massive and terrifying, yet obedient to something other than fear. Elias lowered his head, whispering to the beast in a soft rhythm, a cadence almost like a heartbeat. "You are not a weapon," he said. "You are a being with memory, with choice. You can be more than what they made you. You can be what you choose." The Vorax's massive claws dug shallow furrows into the sand. Its breathing slowed. Its eyes, once blazing, now held a strange softness. The soldiers in the arena exchanged nervous glances. Even Joran felt a knot of fear in his stomach, a sensation he had never known. Helplessness. Then a ripple of movement ran through the crowd. Some beings began whispering to each other, pointing at the human and the Vorax. Others shook their heads in disbelief. The arena that had been built on fear, that had celebrated death and terror, was witnessing a miracle. A human, alone and unarmed, had tamed the untamable. Elias's voice rose slightly, carrying over the murmur of the crowd. "You see, Joran," he said, "power is not the ability to destroy. True power is the ability to change, to protect, to inspire courage where fear once ruled." The Vorax lowered its massive head completely, resting it lightly on the sand beside Elias. Its eyes remained fixed on him, loyal not to the exile, not to the crowd, but to the human who had shown it a better choice. Joran's anger burned hotter than ever. He stepped forward, striding toward Elias with the intent to punish, to reclaim control. "You will regret this," he shouted. "You will feel the wrath of my beast and the weight of my power." Elias met his gaze evenly. "I do not regret courage," he said simply. "And no beast, no matter how great, can take away what is freely given. the choice to be good. The soldiers around the arena hesitated. They had been trained to obey without question, to strike without hesitation, but now they saw a different kind of strength, a power that did not come from chains or weapons, and for the first time they felt uncertainty. The Vorax shifted slightly, moving closer to Elias as if to shield him. Its growl was gone, replaced by a low, steady rumble that vibrated through the arena. The crowd held its breath, the silence almost louder than any roar. Joran stumbled back, disbelief etched on his face. He had ruled through fear his entire life, yet here was a human, smaller and weaker in every way by appearance, holding the ultimate weapon of terror with nothing but calm and courage. Elias knelt briefly, resting a hand on the beast's massive snout. "You are more than a weapon," he whispered. "You are more than your hunger. You are something worth protecting, something worth loving." For the first time, the arena felt different. It was no longer a place of fear. It was a place of choice. The soldiers, the crowd, even Joran could feel it. The air was thick with possibility, with hope, with something that had been absent for generations, respect for life. And in that moment, Elias understood something vital. He was not here to fight, not really. He was here to remind everyone, including the Vorax, the soldiers, and even Joran, that courage was stronger than fear, that calm could conquer chaos, and that one small human could change the course of what had seemed inevitable. The Vorax shifted, leaning its massive body closer to Elias. Its hot breath rolled over him, but it did not strike. Its eyes, once molten with fury, now held trust, and as the sun began to dip low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the arena, a strange, quiet understanding spread through everyone watching. This human was not just surviving. He was changing everything. The arena's sand trembled beneath the Vorax's massive paws. Elias stood tall, chains on his wrists biting into his skin, but his calm remained unbroken. Joran's face twisted in fury. The Zell commander had never encountered a human like this, one who could face his ultimate weapon without trembling. "Vorax, attack now!" Joran roared, voice cracking with rage. The soldiers braced for the command to be obeyed. The chains rattled violently as the beast's muscles tensed. Dust spiraled around its massive frame. Its eyes glowed sharp as molten iron. For a heartbeat, the arena seemed frozen in time. Every creature, every being held its breath. The humans and aliens who had come to watch a spectacle of death felt a strange, uneasy pause in their hearts. This was not what they expected. The Vorax leapt forward. Its claws tore through the sand, massive jaws snapping wide. Elias did not flinch. He did not step back. Instead, he moved the way someone remembers a long-forgotten habit, steady, deliberate, and calm. He lifted his chained hands and spoke softly but clearly, "Remember kindness." The words carried over the roaring crowd, over the snapping teeth and the grinding claws, and something incredible happened. The Vorax slowed mid-leap. Its body swayed like a giant, unsure of its next move. It blinked and its molten eyes softened. The soldiers gasped. Joran froze. The crowd's roar faltered into murmurs of confusion. Fear, the emotion that had always ruled here, was fading. Something else had taken its place. Awe. Elias took a step closer. He let the chains hang heavy on his wrists. He did not strike, he did not run. Instead, he sang a small, quiet song, soft, almost a whisper. It was not a song anyone else could recognize. It was a human lullaby, a memory of home, a thread of something pure in a world full of fear. The Vorax hesitated, massive shoulders shifting as if caught between instinct and memory. Its teeth snapped again, but slower now, less hungry, less violent. It sniffed the air, nostrils flaring. Smoke curled from its mouth, but its focus had turned entirely to Elias. Joran's hands shook. He had trained the Vorax to obey every command, every threat, every scream of authority, and now it hesitated. The chains rattled loosely. The beast, once unstoppable, was listening. "You are not a monster," Elias said softly, moving closer. His voice carried through the arena. "You remember being small. You remember what it is to feel warmth, to feel safety. You can remember kindness, too." The Vorax's massive head lowered. Its growl faded into a low rumble, almost contemplative. The crowd gasped. Soldiers exchanged bewildered glances. Even Joran, the commander who thrived on fear, felt a cold knot of unease tighten in his chest. Elias knelt slightly, resting a hand on the Vorax's jagged snout. The beast leaned down, its hot breath washing over him, but it did not strike. Its glowing eyes were fixed on him, attentive and soft. "You do not have to obey fear," Elias continued. "You can choose. You can be more than what they made you. You can be free, even now." A hush fell over the arena. The soldiers, trained to obey without question, hesitated. They had never seen this before. The Vorax, the ultimate weapon of terror, was listening to a human, a small, unarmed, fragile human, and it was choosing not to attack. Joran roared again, desperation twisting his voice. "You dare defy me? I am your master. You will obey." The Vorax shivered, but it did not move. Instead, it pressed its massive head gently against Elias's chest. Its eyes, still molten, now seemed almost human in their understanding. Elias whispered, "You are more than fear. You are more than hunger. You are something worth protecting." The crowd was silent now, the tension so thick it pressed against the chest like water. They had come to witness terror, to watch a human die, and instead, they were seeing something extraordinary. Courage, calm, compassion, a single human standing against ultimate power and winning without a weapon. Joran's fists clenched. He could feel control slipping through his fingers. His soldiers looked to him for guidance, but there was nothing to give. The Vorax, his symbol of power and authority, had chosen another master, not through force, but through calm, courage, and understanding. Elias rose slowly, still keeping a hand on the Vorax's snout. The beast shifted closer, its massive body nearly brushing against him. "You remember," Ilya said softly. "You remember that you can choose, and that choice is stronger than any chain, any master, any command." The Vorax growled low, a sound that was no longer threatening. It shifted again, closer, resting its massive paws lightly on the sand but not moving to strike. Its chain hung slack. The soldiers dared not step forward. The crowd dared not cheer. All that remained was silence, thick and heavy with awe. Joran's voice cracked as he shouted, "This is impossible. You cannot command the Vorax. It obeys only me." Elias looked up, calm and steady. "You are its master of fear," he said softly, "but I am its master of choice." The Vorax lowered its massive head completely, pressing against Elias's chest as if listening to every word. The arena, built on fear and death, seemed to hold its breath. Even the sand beneath them felt still. For the first time, Elias felt a spark of hope. He had not only survived the initial threat, he had begun to turn the tide. Fear, which had ruled this place for generations, was losing its power. A single human had shown that courage, kindness, and calm could stand stronger than teeth, claws, and chains. The soldiers and crowd alike stared in disbelief. Even Joran, filled with rage and confusion, could not deny the truth. The Vorax, the weapon of terror he had relied upon for years, had paused. It had listened. It had obeyed not fear, but compassion. Elias took a step back, giving the beast space while maintaining his calm. "You can choose to be more," he whispered. "You can choose to remember kindness. You can choose to be free in the way that matters most." The Vorax shifted slightly, massive shoulders relaxing. Its eyes, once molten and terrifying, softened further. Its low rumble was no longer a growl, but a sound of connection, understanding, and recognition. The arena, for the first time in memory, felt different. It was no longer a place of terror. It was a place of possibility. The crowd, the soldiers, even Joran could feel it. Fear was no longer absolute. Courage, calm, and compassion had taken root. Elias stood in the center of the arena, chains on his wrists, a human small by appearance but immense in spirit. Beside him, the Vorax had become more than a weapon. It had become a companion, a witness, and a symbol, and for the first time, the world could see that fear was never stronger than a human's heart. The arena was silent except for the soft, low rumble of the Vorax. Its massive head rested against Elias's chest, eyes glowing faintly. Molten fire softened into something almost tender. For the first time, the crowd felt something different, a strange mix of awe, fear, and wonder. This human, small and unarmed, had tamed the ultimate predator not with force but with calm and courage. Joran stepped forward, his fury barely contained. Every instinct screamed at him to strike, to take control back with violence. "Do you think you can defy me?" he shouted. "Do you think one human can undo years of power, years of fear?" Elias looked up at Joran with steady eyes. He did not flinch. He did not step back. I am not undoing power, he said softly. I am showing that power is not complete without choice. The Vorax can obey fear, or it can obey understanding. I chose the latter, and it chose me. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. They had never seen their commander's greatest weapon pause, never seen it hesitate, never seen it obey something other than command. The Vorax shifted closer to Elias, its massive frame shaking the sand slightly, yet still calm. Joran's voice rose, trembling with rage. You will regret this insolence. You will regret defying me. Elias shook his head. No one regrets courage. No one regrets compassion. Fear may rule today, but it cannot rule tomorrow. The choice to do what is right is stronger than any chain, any command, any weapon. The Vorax made a sound that vibrated through the arena. It was not a growl. It was not a roar. It was almost a purr, low and steady, a sound of recognition. It pressed its massive head against Elias's chest as if agreeing, affirming his words. Joran's anger turned to confusion. He had ruled through fear for years, trained the Vorax to obey without question. Yet here it was, choosing not him, but a human. He could not understand it. His authority, once absolute, felt hollow. The soldiers shifted uneasily, unsure whether to obey him or stand back. Elias took a step forward, chains clinking lightly, and raised his voice so the entire arena could hear. Courage is not measured by the strength of your enemies. It is measured by the strength of your heart. Compassion is not weakness. It is the strongest force of all. The Vorax shifted again, moving its massive paws closer to Elias, not in attack but in protection. Its molten eyes followed every movement, every word. Even the sand beneath them seemed to tremble with the power of the moment, heavy with silence and anticipation. The crowd, who had come expecting screams and blood, could only watch. Whispers ran through the masses like a slow wind. Some were in disbelief. Some were moved. Few had ever seen a human possess such calm, such quiet authority. A human had faced the ultimate predator, and had changed it with nothing but words and presence. Joran's voice cracked. He took a deep breath, trying to regain control. You think words can save you? He hissed. You think a song, a lullaby, can defeat what I command? Elias did not answer immediately. Instead, he knelt slowly beside the Vorax, one hand resting on its enormous snout, feeling the heat of its breath. I do not think words can defeat, he said softly. I know they can awaken. Fear binds, but understanding frees. You have always known this deep inside. You just forgot. The Vorax made a deep rumbling sound and pressed its head closer. Its massive body shook slightly and the chains rattled loosely. It had remembered, and in remembering, it chose Elias over Joran. The soldiers looked at each other in disbelief, realizing the truth. The human had turned the tables. Joran's face was pale now, his rage mingled with fear. He had never felt powerless before. Every command he had ever given had been obeyed. Every fear he had instilled had been honored. And now a human had shown that courage could outweigh terror, that calm could surpass chains, and that choice could defy power itself. Elias stood slowly, looking around the arena. The crowd remained silent, but the energy had shifted. He did not see enemies. He saw witnesses, beings who could now understand that fear was not the only way to rule. You all see this, he said, voice steady and firm. Power without choice is weak. Fear without understanding is empty. True strength comes from knowing you can protect, and still act with courage. The Vorax leaned into Elias's hand, massive claws digging lightly into the sand, but no threat in its movement. Its eyes glimmered with molten light, no longer dangerous, no longer threatening, only alive and aware. Joran's fists shook. He wanted to strike, to reclaim control, to punish, but he found no words. His commands seemed hollow. His authority, built on fear, had been undermined by a single human's calm. The realization filled him with a strange, unfamiliar emotion, humility. Elias spoke again, addressing the commander directly. You can still choose, Joran. You can see that power is more than destruction. You can see that fear is not the only way to lead. Your choice matters even now. The Vorax shifted slightly, positioning itself between Elias and Joran, not in defiance, but as a protector, its massive head lowered, molten eyes fixed on Elias. It had chosen a new path, one of trust and understanding, guided by the human who had faced death and refused to yield to fear. The soldiers in the arena dared not move. They had trained to obey, but now obedience seemed meaningless. The human had demonstrated something no training could instill: courage beyond fear, calm beyond threat, and a quiet authority that even the fiercest beast recognized. Joran's voice was barely audible now. He stepped back, unsure how to regain control, unsure if it was even possible. For the first time, he realized that power alone was not enough. Without respect, without trust, without choice, authority could be broken. And Elias had done it. Elias lowered his gaze to the Vorax, speaking softly. "You are not just a weapon. You are a being with memory, with choice. You can be more than what they made you. You can remember kindness, even in a world built on fear." The Vorax rumbled softly, resting its massive head against Elias. Its molten eyes softened further, smoke curling lazily from its nostrils. The arena, filled with thousands of spectators, remained silent, held in the power of this moment. For the first time, the rules of the arena had changed. Fear no longer ruled. Courage, compassion, and understanding had triumphed. And Elias, small in appearance but immense in heart, had shown that one human could change everything. The arena was still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The crowd, once eager for blood, now watched in stunned silence. They had come expecting terror, but they were witnessing something far greater: courage, calm, and compassion triumphing over fear. Elias stood tall, chains hanging loosely from his wrists. The Vorax rested beside him, enormous and terrifying, yet calm, molten eyes glowing softly in recognition of the human who had faced it without fear. Every muscle in its body relaxed, every growl replaced by a gentle rumble. Joran's face was a storm of fury and disbelief, his hands clenched into fists, shaking slightly. He had trained the Vorax, relied on fear, ruled through terror, and yet here it was choosing another path. You cannot do this," he roared, his voice echoing across the arena. Elias met his gaze steadily. "I am not trying to do anything," he said softly. "I'm simply being myself. Courage is not something forced. It is something chosen." Joran's eyes narrowed, and he took a step forward. "Then you leave me no choice," he hissed. "You will face my wrath. You will regret defying me." The Vorax rumbled low in response. Its massive head shifted slightly, as if sensing the rising tension. Elias turned toward it, placing a hand lightly on its snout. "Stay calm," he whispered. "We face him together." The soldiers around the arena braced, unsure whether to act. They had never witnessed a human stand so confidently against the ultimate predator and the tyrant who commanded it. They exchanged uncertain glances, fear mingled with awe. Joran raised his hands, calling upon all the power and authority he had wielded for years. The arena seemed to darken as he shouted, "Vorax, destroy him!" "Show no mercy." The beast tensed, muscles rippling under its massive black scales, its jaws open, teeth glinting in the sun. Dust swirled beneath its paws. The crowd inhaled sharply, expecting the inevitable attack, and then Elias stepped forward. Chains clinking, voice steady, eyes calm, he raised his head and spoke. "No." The single word hung in the air like a shield. It was not a plea. It was not fear. It was command. Command from courage. Command from understanding. Command from the quiet strength of a human heart. The Vorax hesitated. Its massive head stopped mid-motion. Its claws dug shallow furrows into the sand, but it did not strike. The soldiers froze. Joran's face twisted, disbelief battling with rage. "Impossible!" he shouted. "You will obey." Elias shook his head slowly. "I do not command you with fear. I do not demand obedience through pain. You can choose. You always could. I am here to remind you of that choice." The Vorax's glowing eyes softened, molten fire fading to something almost gentle. Its jaws closed. Its growl turned into a low, almost contemplative rumble. It pressed its massive head lightly against Elias's chest. The crowd gasped. A single human, frail by appearance, had not only survived but had tamed the ultimate predator. Fear, the force that had dominated this arena for generations, was losing its grip. The soldiers, trained to strike at command, looked unsure. Even Joran felt it. His power was slipping. Elias looked at the commander, voice clear and calm. "Your authority has always relied on fear. Fear can break, but courage cannot. The choice to stand tall, the choice to protect, the choice to face danger without trembling. That is true strength. The Vorax shifted slightly, massive body moving closer to Elias as if to shield him. Its eyes remained fixed on the human, glowing softly, no longer molten with rage but bright with understanding. Joran's hands shook, his chest rose and fell rapidly. He had trained his soldiers, his beasts, his entire life to obey him, and yet here was a human who had shown that the ultimate weapon of fear could be influenced by calm, courage, and compassion. "You cannot do this," Joran said again, voice trembling. "You cannot change the rules. You cannot defy me." Elias shook his head. "I am not changing rules," he said quietly. "I am showing the truth. Fear does not rule everything. Courage can be stronger. Choice can be stronger. Compassion can be stronger." The Vorax rumbled, pressing closer to Elias. Its massive claws dug into the sand, but there was no attack. Its eyes glimmered with recognition. It had remembered what it meant to be more than teeth and claws. The crowd whispered, unsure what to do. They had been spectators to countless shows of death, but never had they witnessed something like this. Courage and calm had stopped the ultimate predator in its tracks. One human had rewritten the rules of the arena. Joran took a step back, rage boiling in his chest but unsure how to act. Every instinct screamed at him to strike, to command, to reclaim control. But nothing worked. The Vorax obeyed its own understanding now, not fear, not threats. The human had become the center of authority, not through force but through calm and courage. Elias spoke softly to the Vorax. "Together we face him. Together we show that fear is not stronger than courage." The beast pressed closer, massive body aligned with the human. It was no longer just a weapon of terror. It was a companion, a witness, and a protector. The arena had changed. Fear no longer ruled. Courage and compassion had taken hold. Joran's voice cracked. He could feel the weight of his years of authority slipping away. The soldiers looked at him, waiting for a command that could no longer control the ultimate predator. The crowd stared in awe. Elias raised his voice, calm and steady. "This is not weakness," he said. "This is not rebellion. This is truth. Courage is not loud. Courage is quiet, steady, and unbroken. Fear is loud. Fear is harsh. But courage wins." The Vorax rumbled again, massive head resting lightly against Elias's chest. Its glowing eyes, once molten with rage, now reflected trust. The arena, built on fear for generations, was silent, transformed by a single human's courage. Joran's hands fell to his sides, trembling. He realized then that true power was not domination, not fear, not obedience. True power was choice. And in this arena, a human had shown that courage and calm could change everything. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the sand. Elias stood tall, chains loose, eyes steady, and beside him, the Vorax remained calm, loyal not to fear, but to understanding. The battle of intimidation, of fear, had ended. And for the first time, everyone present understood a profound truth. Courage is stronger than fear, and a single human heart can change the course of even the most terrifying of worlds. The arena was silent, but the silence was not empty. It was thick with awe, tension, and disbelief. The crowd, once eager for screams and blood, now stared at the human and the massive Vorax beside him. The rules of fear had been broken. Courage had won. Elias stood tall, chains hanging loosely from his wrists, eyes steady and calm. The Vorax pressed its massive head lightly against his chest, molten eyes softened not with anger but with trust. Every muscle in its enormous body relaxed. The ultimate predator had chosen protection over destruction, because one human had shown it a different way. Joran's face was pale, rage and shock warring within him. He had ruled through fear for years. He had commanded the Vorax, the ultimate weapon, without question. And now it was clear. Fear could not win against courage. Elias had shown the impossible. How? Joran stammered, voice trembling. "You cannot command the Vorax. It obeys no one but me." Elias looked down at him, calm and unwavering. "It obeys choice, Joran," he said softly. "It obeys understanding, not fear. And I have given it trust, not threats. You built power on fear, but courage can stand taller than fear. And compassion can change even the fiercest heart." The crowd murmured. Some of the spectators had tears in their eyes. Others clenched their fists, inspired by what they had witnessed. Even the soldiers, trained to obey without question, looked uncertain, unsure whether to follow Joran or accept the new truth. The Vorax shifted slightly, massive claws scraping the sand, but it remained at Elias's side. It had chosen him, not as a master but as a friend, a guide, someone who saw beyond its teeth and claws. The arena trembled under the weight of its presence, yet it was calm. Joran's hands shook. He had never felt powerless before. Every command he had ever given had been obeyed. Every fear he had instilled had been honored, and now, all of it had been undone by a single human's courage. "You will regret this," Joran shouted, desperation in his voice. But no one moved. The soldiers hesitated. The Vorax remained calm. The crowd held its breath. Even the air seemed to wait for what would come next. Elias took a slow step forward. Chains clinked softly as he moved. "Regret is not the right word," he said. "I will not seek your fear. I will not demand your obedience. But I hope you can see the truth. Courage is stronger than intimidation. Compassion is stronger than cruelty. Choice is stronger than chains." The Vorax rumbled low, a sound of agreement. Its massive head nudged Elias's chest gently. The crowd gasped. The soldiers looked at the human and the beast, realizing that something extraordinary had happened. A human had changed the rules of the arena, not through force but through calm, courage, and understanding. Joran's knees shook. He wanted to scream, to reclaim control, to show that he was the master, but he could not. The Vorax, the weapon he had relied on, had chosen another path. The human had proven that true power did not come from fear or force. It came from courage, compassion, and calm resolve. Elias's voice rose slightly, carrying across the arena. "Look around you," he said. "The crowd, the soldiers, even the beast beside me, they see what I have seen. Fear is not the strongest force. Courage is. Compassion is. One choice, one act of courage can change everything." The Vorax rumbled again, massive head resting against Elias. Its glowing eyes reflected trust and understanding. The sand beneath its paws shook slightly, but it did not strike. It was no longer a weapon of fear. It was a symbol of strength, protection, and loyalty. Joran fell to his knees. Rage and disbelief clashed with a strange, unfamiliar emotion. Respect. He had ruled through fear, and for the first time he understood that power without choice was hollow. Authority without compassion was empty. Courage and understanding had triumphed over intimidation, and Elias had shown him the way. The soldiers lowered their weapons, uncertain but inspired. The crowd erupted into whispers and then cheers, not for violence but for courage. They had come expecting terror, but they witnessed something far greater, the triumph of the human spirit. Elias placed a hand lightly on the Vorax's massive snout. "You are more than teeth and claws," he whispered. "You are more than fear. You are strength but also compassion. You can protect, not destroy." The beast rumbled softly, nudging him gently. Its massive body shifted to stand beside him, loyal not because of command but because of respect. The arena trembled under the presence of the greatest predator, yet there was calm. There was trust. There was understanding. Joran's voice was barely audible now. "You have shown me something I did not believe existed." He looked at Elias with a mixture of awe and defeat. "You have shown me that courage can overcome fear, and that choice is stronger than command." Elias nodded. "It is not about defeating anyone," he said softly. "It is about standing tall even when the world expects you to fall. It is about being calm when others shout. It is about choosing courage over fear. Every single time." The crowd cheered loudly now, not for the defeat of a human, but for his triumph. The soldiers lowered their heads, inspired. Even Joran, who had ruled through terror, understood that the arena had changed forever. Elias turned to the Vorax. "We have done more than survive," he said. "We have shown everyone that fear is not stronger than the heart of a human. That courage and compassion can change even the fiercest soul." The Vorax pressed its massive head gently against him, molten eyes soft and loyal. It had become more than a weapon. It had become a symbol of the power of understanding over cruelty, courage over fear. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long golden shadows across the arena. The sand shimmered as though alive with the energy of change. A single human, small in appearance, had stood tall against terror, shown courage in the face of the greatest predator, and inspired respect, awe, and hope in thousands of beings. Elias lifted his head, looking around the arena. "This is the truth," he said quietly. "Fear is temporary. Courage lasts. Chains may bind the body, but they cannot bind the heart. Compassion is stronger than cruelty. Choice is stronger than power. The crowd roared, not in fear, not in violence, but in admiration. Soldiers lowered their weapons, understanding that true authority came not from fear, but from courage and compassion. Even Joran nodded slowly, accepting the lesson that one human had taught him in the arena. The Vorax rumbled once more, massive body shifting to stand beside Elias protectively. Its eyes glowed gently, no longer molten with fury but filled with understanding and trust. Together, human and beast, they had changed the arena forever. Elias looked at the horizon, chains clinking softly. He had not.